All right, we are live. We are live from Network School. We're back. We're back to Network School. And we're having so many discussions again. The discussions, the conversations that I was missing. The sort of conversation that I was missing. So back in back in Surat, I had these beautiful conversations with my friends, and we would be out late in the night. We would talk until we were exhausted, until we didn't have anything to say, and that would mean we would talk for like 5 hours, 6 hours late in the night. We would meet at 10 a.m. and I would get back home around 3 a.m. It was amazing. It was amazing. I was that really it really feeds my soul. It feels like that. Like that's exactly what I wanted. And same thing is happening now all over again. I come back last night. I meet one of my friends and we go on this long walk. Then this morning I wake up, I bump into one friend and we go on this ice cream walk. And I won't do that. I won't be doing that a lot. But we did this ice cream walk. We had a good ice cream, it was amazing. And then again, I met another friend and we went on a long walk. And we kept on walking. We kept on walking. It was amazing. It was amazing. And this is what I want more of: long conversations, deep conversations. What are you thinking? What are you building? What do you want to build? What do you want to do? I'm really fascinated by this idea of will to power right now by Nietzsche, and I really want to work on that. I really want to, yeah, this is what we are working on now. We are creating, and we are exploring what's next. I think creating beauty is something that really inspires me. Creating beauty is something that I'm moving towards. Creating infrastructure. In a normal city, you would go and you would feel like it's actually important to see the default. It's very important to see the default of how bad the default can get. So it's important for you to get out, and it's important for you to go and work on something. It's important for you to go and make something happen. It's important for you to move towards a place where everybody pretty much has the same mindset. There are a lot of people who are high agency. There's actually this one account on Twitter, and all he talks about is about agency. Pretty cool. His name is Cracks, something like that. Wow, it's gonna be hard to find this guy without. Okay. What if, actually, what if I search high agency and we bump into this guy? I also slept a lot, so. But I'm still. Oh, K-Pax. Okay, this is the guy we were looking at. K-Pax. Okay. But he talks a lot about high agency, talks a lot about agency. And this is what we want. We want to surround ourselves with a lot of people who are high agency. So what we do is we come together and we work. We come together and we make shit happen. We come together and we make the infrastructure better. How can we keep making the infrastructure better and better and better and better? That is what really excites me. I want to take care of my visa stuff as well. So we have, yeah. So, but visa is interesting because you are not comfortable that because you have a deadline now, because every stay has a deadline, you are much more intentional about where you want to spend your time, which is very interesting, because you don't have a lot of comfort. You are very intentional about where you want to go, and then you specifically apply for that, and then you specifically go over there. But it's also important to know that, hey, don't put anything on a pedestal just because it's hard to get. Not everything that's hard to get is worth having. That's also an important insight. That's a very important insight. Not everything that is hard to get must be put on a pedestal. It's very important that you, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's very important that you just keep going, you keep flowing. So what does he say about this sort of stuff? So 3 times wiser is a newsletter about big ideas, mental models, brain bugs, and principles of wise thinking. High agency is what happens when curiosity survives frustration. High agency is what happens when curiosity survives frustration. Curiosity survives frustration. What does that mean? Curiosity survives frustration. You are frustrated when you see something, when you are not happy with the reality, but you're still curious. You're still curious that what would happen if I just keep going, if I just keep building. This one was also good. People walk around with an invisible permission structure in their head. They are waiting for someone to let them do the thing they want. A credential, a green light, an authority figure to nod. High agency people have basically deleted the software. They simply ask, is this possible? Not, is this permitted? It turns out a staggering amount of what we think is forbidden is just unattempted. Again, very interesting. Very interesting. You don't want to be waiting for permission. We just want to go. We just want to go after what we want. It's very important. I think this time when I'm at network school, I want to make sure that I'm spending more time with myself, with what I want to get done, and where I want to go. I think that's really important. What is that? What is that? Is yeah, this entire visa thing. Let's get more clear about where you want to spend time at. I am still just focused on you never have the answers. You never have all the answers that okay, this is the right place. All you have to do is you have to pick one thing and stick to it and let the compounding do its job. So being an NS, that is good, and then you need another place because you want to keep switching. You want to NS is cool, but you want something from outside to bring to NS. You want a character that you develop outside, you want to bring that into NS. So I think there is a role over here of what can you what is something that you experience outside. You also want novelty. You want novelty because that's good for your brain, and you want to expose yourself to new structures, new ways of thinking. You want to expose yourself to new structures, new ways of thinking, new frameworks, new mental frameworks, and you can only get there by experiencing things. You cannot just sit and learn. So you want to put yourself out there. You want to go through that experience, and then you want to bring that back into this world. You want to bring that back into this world. So that is very important. That is very important. And that is what high agency is. High agency means that you are not waiting for permission. You are just going and making stuff happen based on what you feel is right. So it's important. It's important that you visit. It's important that you visit. It's important that you it's important that you visit these places. And someone with a Canadian passport, that doesn't directly mean someone with a Canadian passport, someone with a US passport, it doesn't directly mean that they are smarter than you. It just means that they have more freedom to move wherever they want. But that also doesn't mean that they have a privilege that you can have. You will be fighting for it, and you will get it, and you will value it even more. You have a struggle. You have been assigned a struggle that is worth fighting for. It is going to be exciting. It is going to be very, very exciting. So keep fighting. Keep fighting. You gotta keep fighting for. You gotta keep moving, keep flowing, keep flowing. Keep flowing is interesting. Like maybe right now, French is something interesting. We stop French. Maybe we go back into French now. We go back into French now. I think now we go back into French now. Okay, cool. We also go back into Chinese. Chinese is also interesting. A lot of people over here, they're learning Mandarin. That is very interesting. Maybe we'll get back into Mandarin. Maybe we'll if oui, si je peux parler le français, si je peux apprendre le français, je prendrai. Si je veux parler le français, je prendrai et je chercherai les informations parce que c'est exactement comment tu grandis, comment tu établis une fondation dans la vie, et c'est exactement pourquoi je suis maintenant, et c'est exactement pourquoi je veux maintenant, pourquoi c'est exactement ce que je veux maintenant, parce que tu sais, la liberté, c'est vraiment important. La liberté, c'est vraiment important. Le concept de parler des choses, parler des choses, ce qui tu penses beaucoup, c'est important parce que par ça, tu es capable de changer tu es capable de parler plus, tu es capable de penser plus profondément, les nouvelles expériences, tu es capable de parler des nouvelles expériences, tu es capable d'expérimenter les nouvelles expériences. C'est vraiment important dans la vie que tu évolues. C'est vraiment important. Donc, c'est exactement ce qui se passe aujourd'hui. So yeah, that's it. French is very interesting. It was a very interesting journey that we went on. We learned and we made it happen. I haven't passed the exam yet. I haven't passed the exam yet. The last exam that I gave, I they basically didn't. I basically only cleared reading, or listening. I only cleared listening. I didn't clear reading, and I didn't clear speaking, which is very surprising. Which is very surprising why I didn't clear why I didn't clear speaking. I am yeah yeah. That is something where if we do a retest, maybe we'll clear it up. So, but it's important to keep fighting. It's important to keep fighting. Everybody needs their struggle, and this is my test. And it's important that you once you clear something like this, then you evolve. Yeah. Okay. The people who complain the loudest about everything are usually the people who have built the least because they don't know what it costs. No complaining about a situation unless you are prepared to do something to make it better. If you see a problem and you don't come to the table with a potential solution, I don't want to hear you whining about how bad it is. It couldn't be that bad if it hasn't motivated you to try to fix it. It couldn't be that bad if it hasn't motivated you to try to fix it. I think that's a really good one. If it's motivating you to fix it, that means that it is really bad. That means it is making you work for it. I think this is exactly what happens with once you experience something like NS, where everything is taken care of, you don't have to worry about food and all that stuff, then you start thinking that, oh, wait, when you go back home, you're like, why is everybody doing this thing? Why is everybody doing this thing? Why is everybody, why is everybody wasting so much energy? What are the things that we could do? Let's ask Claude. What are all the things that humans could do if all the basic essentials are taken care of? Like, let's say if all the basic essentials like food and sleep is taken care of, food and housing is taken care of, where you're gonna sleep, what you're gonna eat, if that's taken care of, will that really help humans to think beyond and have much better conversations? So this is also very, very interesting, and this is what we're going to see more and more of as the concept of NS. The goal is that the concept of NS, you take that and you take that outside. You learn from how this experiment works, and then you take that into the real world. That's how it's supposed to work. So I'm really excited for that. I'm really excited for both the things. The change is going to happen both ways. How things that people learn from outside, how they bring that to NS, as well as what is happening at NS, the structure, the way this is constructed, how when people experience that and they go back into their normal life, what do they take with them? That's also very interesting to know. It goes both ways. What do you bring from outside, from the outside world, from your city? You bring a lot of character, and then what do you take from here? You take a lot of systems. So that is very interesting. It's a rich question, and there's actually good evidence behind the intuition you are pointing at. When survival is uncertain, the mind narrows. The solid research on what economists call scarcity, when people are preoccupied with where the next meal or rent payment comes from, their cognitive bandwidth generally shrinks, decision making gets worse, planning horizons collapse to the immediate, and there's less mental room for anything beyond the next problem. So the premise holds. Removing that pressure doesn't just make people more comfortable, it frees up the actual machinery of thought. What opens up when that floor exists tends to fall into a few directions. The first is longer term horizon. People start optimizing for survival this week and start asking what they want their life to mean over decades. That's when that's where this reminds me of Amazon. First of all, that Amazon, the reason why Amazon is able to think about 3 quarters from now is because they have the revenue, they have the cash flow, they have the run rate today to pay to pay everything for the next 3 to 5 years. They have the cash flow, they have the cash in the bank uh, they have the cash in the bank to allow them to think really long term and then to take on projects that are really long term. People start optimizing for survival this week and start asking what what they want their life to mean over decades. That's where you get long projects, writing a book, mastering an instrument, building something. Again, very interesting. Very interesting that you have you have AC 24/7 on. You have things constantly available to you. Have so much stuff constantly available to you. This is amazing. This is amazing. You have all the stuff constantly available to you. You have all the basic essentials that are built out for you. So what you can truly do now is focus on, okay, what's next, what's beyond, what are we doing now, what are we doing now. It's also important to maybe not just build things just for in a specific, but also global. How do we also build things that are global? How do we go straight to X, straight to Twitter? Because what you are trying to do is not convince people over here at NS. This is a leverage for you. Being around humans IRL is a massive leverage. It's a massive leverage. Use it as leverage. But that doesn't mean that you're only serving these people. Serve everybody. Serve globally. Because serving globally means that you are getting to your taste, your exposure is getting global. You are globally being better. You are improving globally. Your taste is getting globally good, not just right now. And that is something that's very important. Mastering an instrument, building something that won't pay off for years. Scarcity makes that kind of patience nearly impossible. The second is genuine curiosity for its own sake, learning something with no immediate payoff. Astronomy, a dead language, why rivers meander, becomes possible when knowledge doesn't have to justify itself economically. A lot of what we would call culture, science, and philosophy historically came from people who had enough slack to wonder. Culture, science, and philosophy historically came from people who had enough slack to wonder. The third, and this connects to your point about conversations, is a shift in how people relate to each other. When you are not competing for scraps, other people stop being threats or resources and can become collaborators, friends, or simply interesting. Conversations get better because nobody's defending, performing, or angling. You can disagree without it being dangerous. You can say, I don't know, without losing status. You can be wrong out loud, which is where most real thinking actually happens. Conversations get better because nobody's defending, performing, or angling. You can disagree without it being dangerous. You can say, I don't know, without losing status. You can be wrong out loud, which is where most real thinking actually happens. There's a fourth that's less obvious. People get to confront harder questions when you are not distracted by survival. When you're not distracted by survival, the questions that surface are things like, what's a good life? What do I owe other people? What's a good life? What do I owe other people? What am I afraid of? What would I do if I weren't afraid? These are uncomfortable and arguably part of why some people stay busy. Staying busy is a way of not facing them. So basics taken care of isn't automatically blissful. It can be destabilizing because it removes your excuses. Not distracted by survival, the questions that surface are things like, what's a good life? What do I owe other people? What am I afraid of? And what would I do if I weren't afraid? What would I do if I weren't afraid? I would create more beauty. That's the first thing I can think of. I would create beauty, because what that means is that you are creating ornaments, you're creating jewelry, you're creating architecture, you're doing a lot of stuff that is just serving the idea of beauty. I I engage with the world. I create beauty. I elevate consciousness, and beauty with the idea of elevating consciousness. Tell me more about people who approach creating beauty with the idea of elevating consciousness. The last one is worth sitting with, because the rosy version of this idea give everyone security and they will all become artists and philosophers isn't quite what happens. Some people flourish, some flounder, some just find new anxieties. Security is necessary but not sufficient. What seems to actually matter alongside it is having something to aim at, purpose, a project, people who depend on you, a craft you're trying to get better at. Some just find new anxieties. Security is necessary but not sufficient. What seems to actually matter alongside it is having something to aim at, a purpose, a project, people who depend on you, a craft you are trying to get better at. The basics free you from something. They don't by themselves tell you what to move forward. So the honest answer to how would this help humans think beyond is it removes the biggest single obstacle and it makes the better version of a person possible. But the person still has to walk through the door. The conditions you are describing are the ground, not the building. Is there a particular angle you are chasing here? The societal scale? What if everyone had this, or the personal one? What would you do? They pull in somewhat different directions. This whole lineage. Key lessons from the book Abundance by Deepak Chopra. Not as decoration or pleasure, but as kind of technology for changing what a person is, and it's worth saying that they don't all mean the same thing by elevating consciousness. There are actually several distinct theories of how beauty does its work, and makers cluster around them. One camp sees beauty as moral education. The clearest voice here is Friedrich Schiller. Friedrich Schiller, whose letters on the aesthetic education of man argue that aesthetic experience is the bridge. The clearest voice here is Friedrich Schiller, whose letters on aesthetic education of man argue that aesthetic experience is the bridge between our animal nature and our rational, free nature. That you can reason someone into being good, but beauty can refine the sensibility until goodness becomes natural. Very interesting. Very interesting. I want to check if there's an update here. Aesthetic experience is the bridge between our animal nature and our rational free nature, that you can reason someone into being good, but beauty can refine the sensibility until goodness becomes natural. In this view, contemplating beautiful things slowly reshapes the faculties themselves. The philosopher Iris Murdoch made a quieter, more modern version of this argument with her idea of unselfing. You are stewing in anxious self-absorption. You happen to see a kestrel hovering, and for a moment the self drops away, and you see something real that is in you. Beauty for her is a check on the ego, a small daily training in attention that has moral consequences. Treating beauty and attention as nearly sacred. Unselfing. Anxious self absorption, you happen to see a kestrel hovering, and for a moment the self drops away, and you see something real that is in you. Beauty for her is a check on the ego, a small daily training in attention that has moral consequences. Yeah, it's like absorbing, observing beauty, right? Like we are observing beauty right now. The fact that the AC is on constantly. It's beautiful. It's beautiful because you are being taken care of. Your your mood is being taken care of, and you are in AC. It's beautiful. Why it's beautiful? Because you're feeling that you're feeling good. You're feeling like, okay, now that this basic is taken care of, now I can think about more. Now I can think about more, and now you want to make sure that you are using this time wisely. Beauty can refine the sensibility until goodness becomes natural. In this view, contemplating beautiful things slowly reshapes the faculties themselves. The philosopher, you happen to see a kestrel hovering, and for a moment the self drops away, and you see something real that is in you. Beauty for her is a check on the ego, a small daily training in attention that has moral consequences. Simone Weil thought along similar lines, treating beauty and attention as nearly sacred. A second camp sees beauty as a window onto a higher reality. The made object points past itself to something transcendent. This runs from Plato the beautiful as a rung on the ladder toward the good. Through the Sufi poets like Rumi and Hafiz, for whom earthly beauty is a reflection of divine beauty, and contemplating it draws the soul upward. The early abstract painters belong here too, and more explicitly than most people realize. Kandinsky wrote concerning the spiritual in art, convinced that color and form could touch the soul directly. Concerning the spiritually not convinced that color and form could touch the soul directly without the detour of depicting objects. Detour of depicting objects. I think I have an idea that what if we get a room, we create a museum. Okay, let's see. We get a room. Get a museum. Create a museum. Charge $5 for entry every day. Get a room, create a museum, charge $5 for daily pass. Okay. Concerning the spiritual and not convinced that color and form could touch the soul directly without the detour of depicting objects. Mondrian was a theosophist who believed his grids reveal an underlying spiritual order beneath appearances. Hilma af Klint painted enormous abstract works years before Kandinsky, believing she was producing them for the spiritual evolution of humanity, and she predicted they not be shown until decades after her death. Because she thought the world wasn't ready. What? Artworks by. I think we need to do Google for this. Theme of Glen, okay. The third camp is the most literal, and they try to alter perception and conscious states directly. So this one is window into higher reality, moral education. James Stewart is the purest example. He spent decades turning an extinct volcano Rodden crater into an instrument for experiencing light and sky, building spaces designed to make you aware of the act of seeing itself. Mark Rothko wanted viewers standing close to his canvases to have something close to a religious experience. The Rothko Chapel in Houston was built so that people would, in his hope, be moved to tears or silence. Brian Eno invented ambient music partly as a way to shift the listener's mental state rather than command their attention. Shift their mental state. Okay, this is what I want to try. Let's see. Song that makes me feel abundant as described by make me feel abundance as described by Deepak Chopra. Let's see what happens. If music is just for state and emotions, then what if we just convey it an emotion and it creates based on that? That'd be really cool. Okay, it's making it. Let's go. Rodden crater. Let's see what Rodden crater is. What? What is Rotten Crater? One of the most ambitious artworks ever attempted. Imagine an extinct volcanic cinder cone in Arizona desert transformed into a giant naked eye observatory where tunnels, chambers, aperture, and carefully carved spaces frame the sky itself as the artwork. The medium is not paint, stone, or steel, the medium is perception. The medium is perception. Very cool, very cool. The medium is perception. The project was created by James Turrell, who bought the crater in 1977 and has spent nearly 5 decades reshaping it. When completed, it is expected to contain dozens of viewing spaces connected by tunnels that align with celestial events, including solstices, lunar standstills, sunrise, moonrise, and changing atmospheric conditions. What makes it fascinating is that Turrell is not showing you the sky, he's showing you how you see the sky. Manipulate depth, color, scale, and light so that the heavens can appear startlingly close, flat, infinite, or almost physical. Aviation psychology, astronomy, and Quaker spirituality all flow into the work. Tell me more about Quaker spirituality. By the way, ChatGPT is getting so fast. Cool. Few details that add to the mythology. It has been under construction since the late 1970s. Opening dates have been announced and postponed repeatedly for decades. The site remains closed to the general public. Only a small number of people have ever experienced it firsthand. Refusal to arrive. It sits in the strange category somewhere between architecture, astronomy, land art, pilgrimage site, and civilization scale artwork. It's closer in spirit to a cathedral, observatory, or pyramid than to museum installation. Construction is still ongoing and no confirmed opening date exists. Jewel has remained deliberately vague about when it will finally open. I make things that take you up into the sky. Long horizon thinking, civilization, building, and works that stretch beyond a single lifetime. More like a message left for the future. Epic party with Grimes, a 3 million gift boost, Gen 12 Rod Creator. So this was 2020. Wow. Quaker family. Quakerism is a Christian tradition that places unusual emphasis on direct experience rather than ritual, hierarchy, or doctrine. In a traditional Quaker meeting, people often sit together in silence, sometimes for an hour, waiting for what they call the inner light to emerge. That phrase, inner light, is the key. Most art tries to show you an object. Turrell became fascinated by something stranger. What if the artwork is the act of seeing itself? My work is about your seeing. Extremely simple room, no stained glass, no elaborate altar, no dramatic iconography. The experience comes from attention and contemplation rather than visual spectacle. But similarly, when you enter one of his sky spaces, nothing happens in the conventional sense. You sit quietly. The sky slowly changes color, light shifts, your perception begins to play tricks on you. The boundary between the room and the sky becomes uncertain. The goal is not information, the goal is awareness. Rodent Crater as a giant meditation device. Most observatories were built to study the heavens, was built to study the observer, to drill carved tunnels and chambers that frame celestial events with extraordinary precision. But unlike a scientific observatory, he isn't primarily trying to measure the stars. Where you become conscious of consciousness itself. Where you become conscious of consciousness itself. This idea resonates strongly with Quaker practice. Silence instead of noise, direct experience instead of explanation, light as a spiritual metaphor, inner observation instead of external authority. Inner observation instead of external authority. This is also very interesting. Like this time at NS, I was talking to a friend and I was like, instead of searching for an answer outside, what if this time I search for the answer inside? Like, I don't want to engage with, you don't have to engage with everybody over here. You just have to engage with a few, and few people that you, with whom you can talk, with whom you can interact, and that's it. That will fill the cup. You don't have to necessarily engage with every single person out here. Inner observation instead of external authority. That is, the desert matters. It really shows an isolated volcanic crater in the Arizona desert for reasons beyond astronomy. Early Christian hermits, Sufi mystics, indigenous vision quest, Buddhist retreats. The desert removes distraction, the sky becomes overwhelming. It becomes a central subject, a useful comparison. If a cathedral says look at God, Rodden Crater says look at looking. Zen and many visitors describe Tuvel's work as very closer to meditation than art. Why wealthy founders, scientists, and technologists became obsessed with it. Who spent years optimizing the external world. Founders build companies, scientists build models, engineers build systems. Tuvel's work asks a different question. What is the instrument through which all experience happens? The answer is your own perception. What are some interesting, smaller things that I could build which are built on the same principle of what is the instrument through which all experience happens? Because the principle is not make beautiful objects, it's build experiences that reveal the machinery of experience. Through sound, time, conversation, memory, movement, AI, even business. The 5-minute sky room, a tiny room with a single opening to the sky. No art, no explanation, no phone. People enter alone for 5 minutes. Most people have never looked at sky continuously for 5 minutes. Thus, their perception starts changing on its own. This is essentially a miniature Rodden crater. The conversation mirror. Imagine a podcast studio where guests wear earpieces. Every few minutes an AI interrupts. Notice how you sped up when discussing success. You haven't taken a breath in 40 seconds. Your voice dropped when you mention your father. The conversation becomes secondary. The awareness of the conversation becomes primary. The memory museum. People submit one meaningful memory, and AI reconstructs it as a short story, painting, soundtrack, poem. Visitors walk through the same memory, translated into different media. Is the memory itself real, or is it the reconstruction? The infinite hallway, a narrow hallway with subtle lighting shifts. Nothing is displayed. As visitors walk, their perception of distance changes. 10 meters feel like 50. 50 feels like 10. The artwork is not the hallway, the artwork is your brain's distance estimation system. Things they repeat, assumptions they hold, contradictions. The artifact becomes a mirror for identity. You record a message for yourself 5 years from now. Before recording, you listen to a stranger's message from 5 years ago. The emotional effect is often profound. The installation exposes how poorly humans model time. One of your recurring themes, Prashant, is viewing decisions through the eyes of your future self. The silence cafe, a cafe where talking is prohibited, everything else is normal. Coffee, food, people. Within minutes, visitors become intensely aware of eye contact, body language, and tonal dialogue. The missing thing becomes the artwork. The attention observatory, a room with 20 objects. Eye tracking reveals what captured attention. At the end, visitors see You spend 61% of your attention on movement. I think this would be very cool. A silence cafe. A silence cafe. For any noise that is created, you will be moved out of that place. That is specifically built around the idea of silence, that is specifically built around the concept of silence. The one question machine. A kiosk asks only one question: what are you avoiding? Visitor answered anonymously. The machine then shows answer from thousands of previous visitors. Suddenly people discover the universality of their internal struggles. Them conclusions, it lets them inhabit perspectives, just as Rodin's crater frames the sky, the installation frames consciousness. The deeper pattern behind all of these is traditional product gives information, perception product reveals attention, solves problem, reveals assumption, entertains, creates awareness, shows reality, shows perception, changes environment, changes observer. Most startups try to improve the world, most art tries to represent the world. Real strategy is where create conditions where people notice the lens through which they experience the world. Most important object any human will ever encounter, because it is the only object through which everything else is encountered. Okay, let's go back to this guy. Open hands overflow.
I wake to a table set. Even now, enough is here. Bread in the body, light in the glass of water. The floor under my feet says yes. The door in my chest swings wide. I was made to receive, not count what might be gone. I breathe it in, I let it land. More than I asked for, more than I planned. Open heads, more comes in, more comes in. Open heads, open heads. I wake to a table set. Even now, enough is here. Bread in the body, light in the glass of water. The floor under my feet says yes. Morning in my hands like fruit from a tree. I open my eyes and it opens to me. The room feels rich with the air I breathe. Already up, I was chasing more, now I let it come. What I need is here in the beat of my lung. Every little seed knows how to grow. When I stop the rush and let it flow. Full cup, full cup. My life keeps pouring. Full cup, full cup. to me. Full cup, full cup. My life keeps pouring. Full cup, full cup. My heart stays
It's very interesting. This is exactly how it happens even in music. You are first in everything, in content, in music, you are first trying to understand what is the feeling that you want to give this other person. And then the details or just everything else falls under that. You are first trying to figure out that what is the feeling that I want to provide, what is the feeling that someone needs to feel after consuming this, and then comes the details, the lyrics, and all sorts of things. So it's very important that we figure out that okay, it's very important that we figure out that how do you first understand that okay, this is the feeling. It's also so interesting once you start talking about all this kind of stuff. It's very interesting to understand that. It's very interesting to see that how all these conversations, why artists are mostly feeling not understood. They feel very shy about talking about stuff, talking about their art, talking about how they think and stuff like that, because it does feel a little bit cringe. It does feel a little bit cringe when you talk about these sort of things.
morning in my hands like fruit from a tree. I open my eyes and it opens to me. The room feels rich with the air I breathe. Already enough, already free. I was chasing more, now I let it come. What I need is here in the beat of my lung. Every little seed knows how to grow when I stop the rush and let it flow. Full cup, full cup. My life keeps pouring. Full cup, full cup. My heart stays open. I have more than enough. Full cup, it keeps finding me. Coins in the pocket, bread on the
It's also very
plate.
interesting, like right now, Peter Diamandis. Actually, this is so cool. This is so cool that you can play all this music and you will not get any copyright strike because this is all new. And this is all new. You are not gonna get any copyright strike because this is all new. This is not cannot be copyright strike. But look at this. The opposite of paranoia is pronoia. The irrational belief that the universe is conspiring in your favor. I built my entire career on pronoia, and I highly recommend it. Again, really cool, really cool. I believe that the entire universe is conspiring in my favor. How would my entire life look like? How would this show up in the little things, little routines, little habits, little uh, interactions in my day to day life? The inner path to wealth worth flagging because there are a couple of other well known books called Abundance. Yes, there are a lot of books called Abundance. Spiritual take rather than an economic or futurist one. Most of us operate from a mindset of lack, scarcity, limitation, focusing on what we don't have, whether that's money, confidence, or intimate relationship, which keeps us feeling insecure and inadequate. Money, money, confidence, and intimate relationship. His central move is to argue that the scarcity isn't imposed from outside so much as self generated, and that the path out is internal rather than circumstantial. From there, a handful of key lessons emerge. The first is that wealth measured materially is a trap. Measuring wealth by money or material possessions leaves us feeling drained and spiritually empty, and that constantly striving for more usually means the ego is driving our thoughts and reactions, which actually blocks us from inner peace, acceptance, and fulfillment. So, the more reflex is, in his framing, part of the disease rather than the cure. The second is that the ego is the main obstacle. In his telling, the ego is the voice insisting you aren't enough and you don't have enough. And the practices in the book are largely aimed at quieting it. His recommended antidote is daily generosity, something as small as smiling at a cashier, helping a stranger, which he says honors abundance and deactivates the ego, since sharing what you have or what inspires you counters the ego's story of lack. This is captured. I engage, I create beauty, I elevate consciousness, I abundant. Something as small as smiling at a cashier or helping stranger, which he says honors abundance and deactivates the ego, since sharing what you have or what inspires you counters the ego story of lack. This is captured in his line, the lasting wealth comes from basing your daily existence on generosity of spirit. The third is that fulfillment comes from meaning and from giving. Fulfillment is arriving when you have meaning and purpose, and when you know how to make others happy by giving them your attention, affection, appreciation, and acceptance. By giving them your attention, affection, appreciation, and acceptance. Notice the inward to outward logic. Abundance is something you generate and give rather than acquire and hold. Wealth comes from basing your daily existence on generosity of spirit. Notice the inward to outward logic. Abundance is something you generate and give rather than acquire and hold. The fourth is the identity shift. He calls stepping into I am. He talks about connecting to the abundance of the universe. Stepping into the identity of I am and cultivating joy by knowing who you are. The idea is that abundance flows from a settled sense of being rather than from anxious doing. Settled sense of being. The book delivers this through practice rather than just argument. Chopra offers a 7-step plan along with meditation, mindfulness techniques meant to direct your attention, energy, and intuition towards stability, affluence, insight, creativity, love, and true power, essentially aiming to transform consciousness into wealth through yoga and meditation. The 7 steps are optimized around the chakras, each with associated mantras and meditation, which is the part where the book leans fully into spiritual framework rather than psychological or financial one. It's worth naming plainly so you can take the book on its own terms. Chopra's chakra and consciousness vocabulary and his broader habit of borrowing the language of quantum physics for spiritual claims is contested. Science is more metaphor than mechanism, but you don't have to accept the metaphysics to find the practical core useful. The observation that scarcity thinking narrows and corrodes us, that chasing material accumulation tends not to satisfy, and that generosity and a sense of sufficiency changes your experience of your life. Those parts stand on fairly solid psychological ground, and they connect directly to that research on cognitive scarcity we touched on at the start. The difference being that Chopra locates the fix. change your experience of life. Those points stand on fairly solid psychological ground and they connect directly to that research on cognitive scarcity we touched on at the start. The difference being that Chopra locates the fix entirely in inner work, where an economist might insist some of the scarcity is real and structural. No redo how you read the moments that couldn't go either way, so it shows up less as cosmic special effects and more as a quiet returning of ordinary life. Here's the texture of it. It shows up first thing in the morning, in the half second before the day's demands land, instead of waking into a mental list of what you have to get through. There's a small opening, a sense of what might arrive today rather than what I have to survive. You might not reach for the phone immediately. The day starts as something being offered to you rather than something coming at you. Shows are most of all in your attention, which is where the real machinery is. When you expect the universe to be on your side, you start noticing the evidence: the parking spot, the barista who remembered your order, the stranger who held the door. Actually, something very interesting happened. There's a person who works over here in NS, and he reached out and he's like so happy to see you. I don't know if he does that for everybody, but I was really happy to see that. I was really happy to see that. Then go to plan, and this is the part that separates the steady version of this belief from a brittle one. Nothing bad happens. It's even this is workable, and that's a far more durable thing to carry around. Small risk you take, sending the email, walking into the shop, saying yes to the invitation, raising your hand, probably work out. So one of my friends who works with Balaji, he told me like how this all happened. He just thought that, hey, I'm gonna help him. I wanna help him, and that's how this entire relationship started, where he started working on this crazy project. Belief reshapes your attention, your courage, and your warmth, and those generally bend you a little corner of the world. So, in a real sense, the universe does conspire in your favor, but the conspiracy runs through you, which is good news because it means you are not waiting on the cosmos to deliver, you're participating in it daily. The one place to keep your footing is to not let it slide into the universe will handle it, so I don't have to. The version that works keeps your own agency dead center. It's not a substitute for showing up and doing the thing. It's the thing that gets you to show up. Held that way, it's not magical thinking at all. It's closer to discipline of hope, and hope that moves your hands and feet has a way of being right more than often than not. All right, that's